and it was what we thought it was going to be. But we can't, you know, on some level, you have to be able to rely on the guidance that's in effect, and then make your decisions now, because there's only a limited time to actually use this money. The public health emergency is now, and the need is now. So
Any other questions on that?
You can look at the Treasury guidelines and the FAQs as kind of a safe harbor, Oh, good. They need time. Okay. I don't know. No one's doing this because of assurances and warranties. He can explain it better, but there's a reason why you don't.
Motion by Bakuli to approve the resolution authorizing expenditures from Corona CRF funds. Yep. Second by Gepa. Question by Enemy Swim.
Yes.
Which one is that? CRF. Okay. Overall, public health.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. Next one.
Mr. Chairman, was that approved?
Yes.
Okay. So the next resolution is the resolution establishing a COVID-19 emergency financial assistance program for members of the tribe. And this is an expenditure that is in the resolution that you just approved, and it's a total appropriation of $4,125,000. $4 million of which is for assistance, $125,000 of which is for administration. And this is the resolution that establishes the procedure to determine financial need, and to make sure that the money is used for eligible expenditures in response to COVID-19. So the real operative part of the resolution is starting on page 3 at the bottom, where it says, Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate COVID-19 Emergency Financial Assistance Program. And it describes the program, which provides emergency rental assistance and emergency mortgage assistance and emergency utility assistance. There are findings here where the council finds that the tribe does have high levels of poverty and unemployment, and there is financial need among many tribal members for immediate financial assistance in order to weather the economic crisis caused by COVID-19 and to keep their housing and essential utility services. On paragraph 3 on eligibility, this is the part where it does require an applicant to submit an application and supporting documentation, and then the kinds of things that they will be asked. And we had a draft application that we circulated during our working session, and we'll finalize that once the resolution is finalized. But the application would be from the head of household. They would have to be an enrolled tribal member. And then in terms of the income levels, I think we did go back and forth between using the federal government's two different cutoff levels. One was the level at which someone would get 100% of the stimulus payment. So for example, for an individual filing a loan, it was 75. But the amount where someone would just be cut off and get zero was 99,000 for an individual. So you'll see on paragraph C in the top of page 5, the threshold here for a single individual is somewhere in the middle. It's 85,000. For a individual filing as head of household, I think the Treasury range was 112,500 to 136,500. This is somewhere in the middle. And then the range for married filing jointly was 150 to 198. This is somewhere in the middle. So it sets an income threshold, so you will actually have some people who may not qualify if they're over that 170 for married filing jointly or over 85. You have to be comfortable with those numbers. I think these are good, solid, defensible numbers, but you have to like the numbers. And then paragraph E does talk about the need, the financial and other need for the assistance. So the household has to be directly impacted by a loss of income due to COVID-19 and is in financial distress. They would, in the case of applying for rental assistance, they would need the assistance with rent payments to avoid eviction. In the case of an applicant applying for emergency mortgage assistance, they would need the assistance to avoid foreclosure. In the case of applying for utility, they would need the assistance to pay utility fees in order to continue receiving essential utility service. All of this helps people shelter in place, stay at home, stay safe, because obviously without a home and without utilities, you're not able to do those things. The assistance amount is on page 6, and $4 million is appropriated, and for tribal member households on the reservation, it's 1,000. For tribal member households outside the reservation, 500. You can receive rental assistance and utility assistance. You can receive mortgage assistance and utility assistance. I think for obvious reasons you couldn't get rental assistance and mortgage assistance because you probably are only going to need it for one place. One tribal member applicant per household. Payments are made directly to the service provider or housing provider or bank. And then there is a fund for administration. And this would actually delegate authority to the tribal executives to hire a coordinator for the program and 3 assistants to actually administer the program. And all of the applications would be run through that administrative office with the coordinator and the 3 assistants. But the way it's written here, all the applications would go to the tribal treasurer for final review, approval, and payment. And then the coordinator would have to provide weekly reports to the executives and monthly reports to the council on how much assistance was paid out.
Council, any questions, comments? Cooley?
When we're looking at, when we're on page 5, section E, is that different from section B? So in C, if I'm understanding that correctly, the emergency mortgage is if they're in foreclosure and the utility is if they're in a disconnect notice. Is that different than, I guess, how do I ask this? Is that the only way you're going to be eligible for the assistance in Part B?
You're talking about the language that says overdue mortgage payment to avoid foreclosure?
You know what I'm seeing? You know what I'm seeing, Steve? Sorry if I'm not.
No, I'm sorry.
So if you look at E, 3 and 4, in the case of an applicant applying for emergency mortgage assistance, the applicant's household needs assistance with mortgage payment to avoid foreclosure. So they'd have to be in a foreclosure.
They don't, I don't think they actually have
So
to
that's
be
not what that's
in
saying.
foreclosure, but it's to avoid the possibility of foreclosure. I mean, we all know if we don't pay our rent, we're subject to eviction.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think I don't think the tribe has to wait until the landlord actually files a case in court to evict someone.
'Cause that's kind of, I wasn't clear if that's what that was saying there. So you answered my question.
The Treasury guidance, it does say a program to assist individuals with payment of overdue rent or mortgage payments to avoid eviction or foreclosure. It does talk about that, but I think, you know, if you don't pay your rent, you don't pay your mortgage, you're going to be subject to eviction or foreclosure.
So you would be eligible for rental assistance or mortgage assistance without any being in a foreclosure status, right? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think as long as you can say, by the tribe giving me this money, you are helping me avoid foreclosure. And the reality is that you are. Because if you don't pay your mortgage, they're going to foreclose.
Council, any other questions, comments?
Overdue. Yeah. Take this out. Take that out. Take that over.
Anyone want to make a motion to
I
approve?
think on page 3 at the
Oh.
bottom, you could take out the word overdue in subpart A.
And then,
And on page 4 on B, you could take out the word overdue.
where at, sir?
Pardon?
Where?
Page 4, subsection B at the very top.
Okay. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Bakuli, second by Ms. Swim. Question by Madam Secretary to approve the resolution establishing a COVID emergency financial assistance program for members of the SWO with changes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, next is the resolution establishing guidelines for the payment of hazard pay and overtime from the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The Treasury Department did give guidance to state, tribal, and local governments about hazard pay. And one question was, could a government use the CRF to pay across the board hazard pay for all employees working during the state of emergency? And they said no. So in order to pay hazard pay, the employee's services have to be substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to COVID-19. And the work that they're performing has to be performed under some hazardous condition related to COVID-19, meaning some exposure to a risk related to COVID-19. And so this policy was developed in connection with the vice chairman and his staff to make it easy to determine who's eligible and who isn't eligible for hazard pay and overtime using CRF money. So the real operative provision is on page 3 at the bottom, and it says guidelines for the payment of hazard pay and overtime from the CRF. And the first thing is hazard pay. So subpart A says when an employee would be eligible for hazard pay, and all of the conditions have to be met. So number 1, for any hour of work for which hazard pay is claimed, 2 things have to apply, and on page 4, the first thing is the services of the employee must be dedicated to mitigating or responding to COVID-19. And then the second thing is the work has to involve hazardous duty or work involving hardship, which is related to COVID-19, including work that involves mandatory contact with the general public or other work that involves hazardous exposure to COVID-19, which is not mitigated by the use of personal protective equipment, which shall be demonstrated on a case-by-case basis. So in other words, you gotta be responding to COVID-19 in some way, and then the work has to be hazardous in some way. And then the other things are just a part of the general CRF guidance that the cost of the hazard pay can't be in your current budget that was in effect before the CARES Act, and it has to be spent before December 30. And then what this does is, and we had a discussion, the vice chair and his staff and I, about what would the right process be to approve this, because this is going to require a program manager to actually document it, to actually give you something that you can look at to say, oh, okay, they really were responding to COVID-19. Oh, okay, that really was under a hazardous condition. So they're going to give that documentation, and then the suggestion was that just go to the tribal executives and that you can approve those. Hazard pay is at the flat rate of $10 an hour for frontline workers, and for all other essential employees at the rate of 25% of their regular hourly rate, not to exceed $7 per hour. Now I will say this: if you are going to bring back employees as early as next week, then you may want to get rid of the word essential there and just say all other employees. On paragraph B on page 4. Is that what are you going to be bringing employees back? Okay. I think in that case, I don't know if your non-essentials are actually responding to COVID-19. It would seem like if they were, then they would be essential and they would have already been here. So it may not make a difference at the end of the day, but we can get rid of that one word. Now for overtime, basically the only requirement on overtime is not that it be hazardous, just that it be actual overtime and that the work be related to responding to COVID-19. So it's a little bit simpler, but in all cases, the requirement is on the program manager to provide the documentation to justify the fact that the work is related to COVID-19, and then in the case of hazard pay, that it was performed under hazardous work duty conditions. And I think this is the guidance that the vice chair and his staff were looking for And it does put a little bit of the burden on the program managers to give them the information that they need to make these case-by-case decisions. But Treasury has clearly said that where these conditions are met, you can provide this kind of pay, and it's helpful to your employees.
So Steve, it can be essential and it can be hazard pay at the same time. That's what you said.
No, you can.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just didn't want to limit it only to hazard, only to essential.
Okay.
I think your non-essential could, if they, let's just say someone who's non-essential comes back to work and maybe part of their time is repurposed to responding to COVID-19, then yeah, they're right in there.
So they be essential and hazard.
You can be essential and hazard. You could be,
Non,
Enforcement.
absolutely.
Enforcement, LTC, anybody else, child protection. Mike? He's always essential. But, okay, so back to your other resolution, Steve. In there, you have, that for travelers on reservation, that can be receiving assistance for rent, mortgage, utilities. So if that's something that, right now, the council passed that resolution, is that something that you guys are doing, that you're doing then with that rental reduction and stuff, for the mortgage help? Because, the housing, board of directors, did what, 3 months of rent? They did 3 months of reduced rent, but that was only for rent. That's not including the 515s, the tax credits, or the IHS housing.
Yeah, they have the option to put in if they want rental assistance, or it's gonna be or like utilities.
So now that this resolution is done, how long do they have to apply for that? Just until that line item is completed?
Till December 30th.
Either December 30th or until the funds are completed, right?
Yes.
Unless you refund that account, that line item?
Yep.
Okay, so that means they're going on record to reduce rent for a month or so. You would reduce to that basis. If that money was there, then we could reduce the rent and have it here, apply for that, and check the housing. So that'll be for everybody, including IHS, like
If that's what they choose, I mean, we can't make them take housing assistance. They might choose utility assistance. Yeah.
they got water and sewer, but they get the housing as well.
Yep, so that'll count too. I mean, it doesn't have to be the full amount for just utilities. They could do X to utilities and Y towards the mortgage or rent. Yep.
Or if they got back rent,
Yep.
that's kind of according to the resolution.
yep.
So this funding, this is just for town members, right? Not for our doctors or anybody else?
No.
Because we've got doctors that are living on IHS, so just want to make sure that it's clarified, every time we live. So, so everybody hears it out there, it's just for our town members who reside in the housing place.
What?
No, not just,
For anybody. Yeah.
I'm talking about for the rent reduction. Yeah, it's for just town members only across the board.
Oh, rent reductions only. Yeah, it only applies to housing tenants. Yeah. Yep.
That's what I was getting at.
Okay.
Since that came up, in the resolution on emergency financial assistance, if the housing authority wants to give a rent reduction, that's good, and they can do that. That's really separate from this, which would be if you still have a remaining rent obligation, even though it's reduced, and you can't pay it, then you could get this money to, right? But it does say you can't double dip. So if you got like a rental, if someone else gave you money to pay your rent already, the tribe won't give you that same money to make that same rent payment that you already got money to pay for, so there's no double dipping.
What we're getting at those, Steve, is, okay, so we have the housing, the board of directors, they reduced rental rates, but it's only for the low rent units.
Yeah,
So that's just in the housing stock, the numbers that were used for the first 60%.
yeah,
So what I'm getting at now is there's other types of housing that we have, which is our 515 homes, which is our tax credit homes, and then also our IHS stock. Those we never reduced the rent on. So if our members are going to be allowed to come here and apply for that funding to help pay for the rent, then we'll reduce the rent again for our low rent tenants. So there won't be double dipping.
great, that all makes sense. Yeah, and when someone applies for the rental assistance, they'll actually have to show a lease, and they'll have to show, that basically the payment is going to be made to the landlord. So, that's, so totally on top of this program, it's excellent that Housing Authority is doing what they're doing because it provides additional relief. Some people are still going to need help, and then this program is there for the people who still need help.
Steve, do you have anything else on this last resolution, the hazard pay and overtime?
No.
Council, any questions on that hazard pay overtime? Motion by Khaipa, second by Enemy Swim. Question by Old Agency.
Milton Owen. Cheryl Owen. Lisa Jackson.
Yes.
Louis Johnson. Francis Crawford. Curtis Bissonette. Tribal Vice Chairman. Tribal Secretary. Mr. Chairman, motion passed.
Thank you. Lindsay, that added with change, there was only one change in this one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
Dean has an answer for us on the construction. Should we have him call in?
Yeah? You guys number us? Yeah, we're gonna have to call him.
Just have them text it to you or whatever.
No, it's complicated, so I wanted him to tell you, because
Should we-
hearing it from me is secondhand.
Well, everybody's kind of getting hangry here, so we should probably, how about if are we done? Or we got any other business?
Yep,
If
we're
we just, after this, once we adjourn, everybody go eat and then come back for that phone call, because,
Okay,
okay, we'll start with Madam Secretary.
And Dr. Johnson left, but I have a quote here for Lakeshore for learning materials for Head Start that I need approval for, in the amount of $43,195.39. Need a motion to approve. It was only one entity that submitted a bid.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Bakuli. Second by Khaipa.
He did it, yeah.
Question by Old Agency, and that'll be from Head Start funds.
Yes.
Yes.
Francis Crawford. Curtis Bissonette. Winfield Rondell Jr. Milton Owen. Cheryl Owen. Tribal Vice Chairman. Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one more thing from Early Childhood Intervention Program Director. They need a motion, they're requesting a sole source vendor approval for Connecting Point out of Watertown for $5,000 and $5,040.
That did go through procurement process, and that's the only bid that came in.
Yes. It's coming out of early childhood funding.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Bakuli, second by Enemy Swim.
Question?
Question by Madam Secretary.
Lisa Jackson.
Yes.
Louis Johnson. Francis Crawford. Curtis Bissonette. Winfield Rondell Jr. Milton Owen. Cheryl Owen. Tribal Vice Chairman. Tribal Secretary.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passed.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman?
We can't defer the whole payments, but, for Dakota Bank, but they would let us, cut down to interest payments only, which is 11,100 from 39,000, for 3 months for our grocery store. So I just need a motion that, I can request, tribal council, motion for interest-only payments for 3 months, and that I'm designated to sign the paperwork.
What's the payments going to be total?
Total, it looks like 33,300.
What's the funding source?
Well, this is just our monthly payment.
Oh, just a regular payment? Okay.
It's just reduced from 39,000 to just paying the interest payment.
So it's a total of 33 for the three?
33,300.
What months is that covering?
It would probably start it next month. So July, August, September. Yeah. Just a loan payment deferral due to the COVID-19.
So moved, Mr. President.
Motion by Bakuli. Second by Lake Travers. Question by Buffalo Lake.
Lisa Jackson.
Yes.
Louis Johnson. Francis Crawford. Curtis Bissonette. Winfield Rondell Jr. Milton Owen. Cheryl Owen. Tribal Vice Chairman.
Yes.
Tribal Secretary. Mr. Chairman, motion passed.
Thank you.
And then the next one is the Verizon bill. It's actually paid for by the programs, but since we were on a spending freeze, just from the months that we didn't pay, if I can get a motion to pay our bill for $20,722.18. Okay. Past ones?
Yeah. Okay, because now programs can pay RO, but that was like during the freeze.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
For every bill, okay.
Okay. Well, you just want me to refer to that motion then?
Okay, so authorize Vice Chairman to pay past due? Past, okay, past due and current,
Send these revised
okay.
resolutions to the language.
And then we, Vice Chairman will bill each individual program then.
Easy to put
Okay.
Christopher and Christine,
Motion by Lake Travers, second by Long Hollow.
is that Christine right there? No,
Question by Buffalo Lake.
assistant, she's the executive assistant for the tribal executives. So she's acting as his officer.
And that's all I have. Oh, I'm sorry.
for the 60 days.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Council, any other business, or Steve and Michael?
What time you want to talk to Dean?
It's 2, should we say 3? You guys-
3? I'll let him know.
It's up to you guys.
You guys taking off for the day?
Well, cafe's gonna be closed, you're gonna have to go somewhere else to get lunch.
What, we left her?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 o'clock. Oh, okay. What do you think? Do you
You wanna
hear
just-
Steve?
You want to just do an executive with Dean?
That's fine.
Yeah, me,
Yeah, I guess if council's okay with that, we can do that conference call with Dean, unless you want to be here. If you want to be here, great. If not, however you want to do it. Okay. Yeah. Duh.
right, yep. Okay. Let's go see some buffalo.
Well, we'll just schedule it for 3. Whoever shows up, shows up. And then, yeah, I don't think Steve probably doesn't need to be there then.
Sounds good.
Okay. Council, any other business? Old agency? Okay.
Do we have a
Lily?
update on our minutes being put on the webpage? And then also, can she expand our mailbox and also put our board and committee minutes and manager minutes? If we can get a space designated for our minutes, board and committee minutes and manager program reports.
Can check with Don on that? Okay.
Okay, thanks. I don't delete though, I put them in folders, so then I think. Oh. Okay.
Hey, council, any other business?
What's the right chairman directions?
Yep, so do I, yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, back in the day, they were changing them with every new position. It would be SWO Bikuli, or now it's just Bikuli or something, yeah, so. Yeah, so,
It was probably the previous chairman or another email that they had for chairman.
It just comes
yeah.
bad.
Thank you.
Motion by Lake Traverse, second by Bikuli. We are adjourned.